Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this panel discussion titled The Q Cyber Frontier, Harnessing Quantum Innovation for Cyber Resilience. Moderated by Ryan Chalcutt, award-winning TV correspondent. Our panelists are Jinyoung Oh, Vice President, Korea Internet and Security Agency, Republic of Korea. Mark Hughes, Global Managing Partner, Consulting Cybersecurity Services, IBM. Arnaud Taddei, Global Security Strategist and ITU, TSG17, ITU. David Panhans, Managing Director and Senior Partner, BCG.
All right, good afternoon. As you heard, my name is Ryan Chalcutt, and I would like you to please join me in welcoming before we get started here, before they get going. If there's one topic that simultaneously leaves most lay people like myself scratching their heads and at the same time give you goosebumps, it's the use of quantum computing as a means of cyber defense and attacks in the future. So, Mark, if I could start with you. Let's start with the threat of quantum computing to cybersecurity. What's different about the threat of quantum computing-based cyber attacks from the we have today, and how far are we from this really being a problem?
Yeah. It's a great question. So I'm going to start. Can you hear me? On the mic. I'm going to start basically just bringing it up a level. So IBM, where I'm from, is at the forefront of developing quantum computing for
Mark, 2 seconds. If we could bring Mark's volume up a little bit, I'll thank you so much. Much appreciated. Yeah.
Is that working now? How about that? Any good? Are we up? No.
Getting there.
Getting there.
Yes. This may be the world's first quantum computing-based cyber attack. Are we all good now? Certainly doesn't.
Okay, how about that?
Yeah? No?
Any good?
Maybe we need another microphone. You know what we can do? Here we go.
Another microphone. How about that? How about that?
Yeah.
Good. We're there.
We
We're there. Wow. Now you can hear me.
Mark, take two.
There we go. IBM has been at the forefront of quantum computing, and I really wanted to start, Ryan, just by answering the question very briefly, is that we are here talking about quantum in quite a negative way. But before we get there, I just want to explain that quantum computing is essentially sitting on a spectrum of computing. So we all know about traditional classic computing, binary computing. We then have now, more recently, we understand a lot more about GPU computing, which fuels a lot of the AI-driven neural net approach, and that computing is quite specific to enable AI to work. Now we see emerging quantum computing. And there are different approaches to computing, and the quantum computing approach is going to revolutionize our capability, but not just replace. We are going to live in a spectrum of computing, and quantum is going to supercharge a lot of the computing we're able to do. And before I go into the actual question that you asked me, Ryan, I want to talk about what quantum actually is going to give us, what we understand today. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff we don't understand yet because we don't know necessarily what the applications and uses of this is going to be. But to give you a flavor, the really exciting stuff that is happening now, it's no longer just a theory, it's now. So the first area that quantum is going to unlock is our ability to be able to model nature and also model material behavior. So all of those use cases around health and how we can unfold proteins, things that classical computing just can't do, we can get much greater understanding of things like them being able to tailor medicine for each and every one of us based upon how our bodies function specifically. That is something that quantum will be able to open up. So there's that whole modeling of. The second area of use case grouping for quantum, what it will allow us to do, is being able to solve for very, very complex algorithms. And I'll come back to that in a second. And then lastly, it's around search and being able to really supercharge our ability to search through complex sets of data, which traditional computing can't do for us. So with that, then comes the immediate question, well, what does that mean for cybersecurity And what does that pose? Well, out of all of those wonderful things that quantum's going to give us, things like quantum sensing, for example, and some of that is going to help us do better security, like, for example, preventing counterfeit. Quantum sensing is going to help with that. There is one use case. Of course, trust its security that's going to come out with the downside use case. And there is an algorithm that exists today, Shor's algorithm. And when you think about traditional encryption, asymmetric encryption, Shor's algorithm, which was developed in the 60s by Peter Shor, when quantum computing, the algorithmic part becomes really mainstream, you'll be able to run that algorithm that will be able to define the factoring in our existing cryptography and our asymmetric cryptography that's deployed everywhere today. So the challenge in quantum computing is the fact that there is going to be an event that will happen that will allow that algorithm to run using quantum capability that will render a lot of our encryption that we use vulnerable. And that is the challenge and the essential issue that we are talking about here today. Now, please, I'm again, that's in a whole spectrum of a lot of good stuff that quantum's going to bring us. Now, specifically, then what that poses for us is that threat actors will be able to get hold of data that is currently encrypted using the encryption that we use, the asymmetric encryption, and then harvest that now, and then when the capability comes along to run the algorithm to defeat, they will then be able to decrypt that information. And so that's what we call in the trade, harvest now, decrypt later. Now, the next question that you're going to ask, all of you are going to say is, well, when is this going to be real? When are we going to be able to run the algorithm that will defeat the encryption? So it's not precise, but at IBM now, our latest generation of quantum computing, Blue Jay, as we call it, means that we think we'll be in a world where that will become reality as soon as 2029, 2030, and there are others on the panel who will talk more about where governments see that being. So that is now the challenge, Ryan, that we have to prepare for when that becomes reality.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mark. David, be the devil's advocate or respond to the devil's advocate kind of view here, the contrarian view that, you know, I mean, how many times have we heard that fusion is, oh, it's almost here. You know, we've been talking about that for a couple decades now, and yet fusion hasn't quite arrived. Another conversation, but how sure can we be about this? This is going to be real in 2029 or 2030, whatever it is. And the second part is it really going to be a big deal? It makes me think of Y2K. 1999, I was a reporter, and we all heard that Y2K was the end of the earth, and then actually nothing happened. If you could speak to that, please.
Oh, mine is actually working, good. So yeah, I think one of the reasons why we are discussing here today is that it's not anymore like just a lab conversation in some research institutes. It's really something that we believe now is up the horizon, and we see now tech providers already basically giving access to some quantum computing applications, like for example in Microsoft Azure. And so this bar of owning the hardware, which is obviously multi-billion investments, makes this disappears and makes this access to the technology potentially much more practical and accessible and near in the future. Now, when we talk to business leaders, different sectors, also here the investments into quantum computing rises over time. More than 1/3 of interviewed large corporations, they are investing. It's still not really massive investment, but they're dedicating now significant investments into quantum computing to understand the vulnerability of the ecosystem, their own organization, but also see opportunities in terms of optimization and efficiency enhancement that technology can actually provide to their business. And I think here sectors were mentioned already. I think energy, obviously this financial industry, then also drug development in pharmaceutical companies. So basically companies that are exposed to very large complex projects will leverage this technology to harvest future business competitive advantages. So investment is real, technology is getting accessible, so that's why the discussion is not anymore just a research or theoretical academia question. It's really something that we need to now take into consideration when we talk about how do we secure, as it was mentioned by Mark, how do we secure our data and our communication today with the upcoming quantum computing capabilities in decryption.
Thank you. Well, let's talk about that and exactly how we get ready for this PQC world. So, Arnaud, how do you leverage quantum computing in cyber defense to enhance threat reduction?
Is it working? Yes. So to leverage quantum computing, the issue we have is the scale of how we need to migrate all of these defense on the planet. It's not just a matter of the scale, it's a matter of history and legacy. We have tons of protocols and systems that exist today that we need to figure out where they are, and we need to migrate them. So I work at Broadcom, the big tech company, but as I am as well the new chair of the International Telecommunication Union Study Group 17 for Security and Trust, which is the standardization group that is with security and trust. So the problem is that we have a friction issue. At the moment, nobody is really ready to understand what to do to make this migration. So when you start to look at the projection of when to do that, for example, there is some kind of a consensus that by 2030, to Mark's point, we should at least address the Harvard's first data problem. The rest of the problem could be addressed by 2035, like, for example, in motion issue. So that's something more or less a consensus. We are able to stick to that, no, and we do not have a consensus is how we position for PQC versus existing systems. Should we have a way that we abandon completely the traditional cryptography only for PQC algorithms, or should we have a model cohabitation between? That's one thing. The other thing that we don't speak about too much is that PQC is not the only solution. There is another solution called quantum key distribution. So I had the chance to start my career at CERN, right, a long time ago. And when I started my career, the person in front of me in the office was a certain Tim Berners-Lee. I had the chance to work on the first web server on the planet. So I've seen a lot of things there. The point is that what I learned from CERN is that the mathematician and the physicist literally hate each other. So let's be about that. So what happened when the Shor arrived, there was a huge battle between mathematicians saying it's simply a matter of changing the algorithm and therefore the NIST prepared the 3 solutions we are now left on the algorithm. But the physicists disagreed with that. They said, no, we can fix one problem with our own solutions on quantum. So what they did, they said, okay, if the problem is to protect a secret between two, right, a server and a client and a server, why don't we use quantum way to transport the secret between the two pieces? So imagine that they started to see we can use a property called intrication of the particles. We're going to twin these particles, push them with a laser to another place, and encrypt the key on these particles. Therefore, when they are at the destination, the system consuming these will be able to consume the secret and nobody could see it. So you would think it's science fiction because it's literally teleportation. And the trick is that when this happens, it happens at the speed of light. There is not a particle that goes from the particle to the other one to say, hey, do something. No. It's like suddenly we curb the surface of the universe and the two particles are in the same place in another dimension. That's why we have the impression they communicate faster than the speed of light. Now, the thing is that you would believe science fiction? Absolutely not. I live in Jinyoung Oh. All the banks around me on their data centers, they protected their data centers, their dedicated data centers with this technology since 15 years. China has sent a satellite for quantum communication, the Hughes satellite, in 2016. That means that they started to plan apps in 95. That's 20 years that they work on that. So point is that there are two distinct solutions from two groups that really hate each other. I can tell you how many stories between the PQC people and the QKD people. But so we have more and more solutions coming, and there we stop. The rest will be a standardization discussion.
Just a quick joke. We know that Switzerland with bank secrecy, so.
Yeah.
No, but just want to make sure before we continue with this conversation that everyone understood what they just heard, because we're going to have a pop quiz on how you protect against quantum computing based attacks. That's joke. Okay.
Okay.
So that's all pretty fascinating stuff. What is Korea doing to prepare for this post-quantum world?
Okay, just before, we heard about the quantum computing and then quantum-based security things, from the private company and like the investment, from the international body, for the standardization. So I just want to talk about the kind of a countryside, what we have to do, for the future, the PQC migration things. So I just want to also, talk about how the Korea is preparing for the quantum era, especially for the cybersecurity perspective. Yeah, because actually, do I have to buy the IBM's stuff, for the quantum computing? And what at the same time, do I have to buy the kind of the security stocks, like such as IonQ and I things actually, right? At the same time, we have to prepare two things actually for that. And Korea, we are now, we have the had a kind of the master plan actually for the migration, the PQ post-quantum cryptography things. And then just a few weeks ago, we also, announced kind of the very detailed action plans, the master plan things. So now we started with the kind of the pilot project and the industry. So we choose the three areas, for this project. The first one is like the government operating. The second is energy. The third one is the healthcare. But the reason why we choose this, this is very important, for the the society. But next year, we have a plan, another plan, more sensitive area, for past. So we need to get the kind of the experience, from this year. So we will have a pilot project, for the transportation, telecommunications, the military area, and finance, even things, for next year. So after that, we're going to do kind of device area like the IoT things, for the pilot. But the problem is, I think that many people just mentioned, about we might have a kind of the very dangerous, the period, for the quantum computing, for year 2030 to 2035, because we're gonna have a kind of the legacy and the quantum computing at the same time. So we need to prepare that kind of things. The things.
You mean all of the cyber defenses won't be in place yet?
Yes, because the two cryptography, by the at the same machine. But the IBM already had the kind of the solution, for that kind of issues. That means we have to take the action just right now. We have already kind of we already know that the theory and that we have a technology. But the government should take the action actually at the moment. Otherwise, there will be kind of the big chaos for the whole society, the public and private things. This isn't like the future things,
Yeah.
We already have that kind of a problem. Actually, for the KISA, my company, by ourselves, we do the kind of the migration, the PQC things, to our kind of the management system. So we're going to use that kind of things, and get the listen, from them, and then we will use that, for our clients actually. But we're not only doing this kind of this by ourselves. We really want to talk about that this kind of issue with the kind of the multilateral platform. So now we are talking with the Singapore and Switzerland, Nice as well, and there's some of very the good private company as well. So this kind of things we need to talk about.
Just 1 second. Hold that thought for a second. Mark, I want to get you to react to that because I guess we should not be surprised that Korea has a plan, right? Korea's out front, and that should be good, right? But how does the rest of the world measure up against the Koreans? Which is a bit of an unfair question, perhaps.
They're doing very well also,
And give us your thoughts, and we only have another 5.5. I'd like to hear from some of the other panelists too, so if you could be a bit brief. How does one go about this task of deploying defenses across industries, but also across jurisdictions?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I will be brief. So meanwhile, in the real world of all of us in this room here, we have all the great stuff that's coming. How do we get ready? Now, cryptography, I've been at CISO for many years, been in security for many years. Cryptography has been one of those things that we haven't paid much attention to because it's worked, right? And we've had effective algorithms work for many years. that's now changing, as you've just heard, because now they are at risk, or the crypt that we have is at risk. So the practical approach now that we've just heard that how Korea is organizing and other countries are organizing as well. But when you get down into our companies that we represent here in our organizations, is you've got to start doing stuff right now, which starts with, well, what crypt are you running? Where is it in your organization? How you discover what there is, and importantly, what's in your supply chain? And how do those crypt workflows work? So we call it, but the starting point is to establish your cryptographic bill of materials, CBOM. So get to that point, understand where the cryptography is, then understand now the algorithms that are now quantum-resistant algorithms, and we at IBM have developed 3 of them. In fact, the 4th one we also now have as well. But there's going to be more that's going to come. And so understanding where you have your crypt, then understanding what algorithms are and choosing the best way to deploy those is something that organizations can start doing right now and can start getting busy at understanding the approach that needs to be taken to deal with what you've got, what you're going to have to do, and what the steps are of working through that hybrid that other speakers have spoken about, where you'll have fully quantum-resistant crypt and you'll have a world where you'll be running both at the same time. And that's something that organizations can do right now and can get busy at, and there are tools available that we've developed, for example, in IBM, that help organizations really discover their crypt and what they know about it. And there's some people in the room here who we've been working with very closely and we've been pretty successful at doing already. But this is a real journey, and it's going to continue, as you say, for a few years yet.
Thank you very much. Arnaud, very briefly, where does standardization fit into this?
Yeah, so standardization is essential because we are going to have a lot of friction, and we are going to evaporate a lot of energy in this journey. And the role of standardization is, first of all, to make sure the NIST has done a job on the algorithms, but there are plenty of other places like ITUT, SG17, where we have to look at migration, use, and hybrid use. And that's not easy at all, because we need to change, imagine the number of protocols we need to change. We need to change X509, we need to make sure there is room for having migration, but plenty of things we don't know. For example, on the TLS protocol, if you start to increase the size, will everything stick on one packet? How many network devices will fail because we have not tested against that? So we are going to have all sorts of side effects, and standardization needs to help. My critique at the moment is that standardization is not prescriptive enough. We are not helping organizations to understand exactly where they should start. And to Mark's point, the UK and CSC made a very good metaphor. If your IT assets is your house, you must start to identify all the nails that built your house. And just that is a colossal amount of work. I will finish with one thing, which is if you put PQC, migration, QKD, and you add AI and all the other things, we're asking too many things to organizations. The problem will be resources. So what I see with my customers when we discuss as Broadcom on PQC and other things, customers start to engage on 10 years long contracts because they understand if they don't secure the resources now, there will be people who will not have the resources to do that job. And I will finish at that.
Thank you very much, David. Standardization, we heard a little bit about global standardization requires collaboration across jurisdictions. We are at the Global Cybersecurity Forum. This is its 5th year. It tends to be one of these places where that collaboration can happen. But of course, when you look around the world, increasingly fractious place where international collaboration on some of the most mundane topics seems to achieve. Can we tackle the problems associated with quantum computing-based cyber attacks without proper global collaboration, when we have a world where there are at least a couple of camps out there?
It's a great question, and I think the challenge is, and we heard now grasp a bit the surface of the complexity, that no one will be able to solve all these challenges alone. So the idea here would be to create alliances. That's pretty much also on other regulatory topics, best practice to basically get a knowledge exchange, also have recommendations of technology choices, but also there's a big item around talent. I mean, now it's one of the big topics as we speak today. No one knows where to get talent to tackle the AI problem. No one finds the right talent also to tackle the, let's call it 1.0 cybersecurity problem. But now we are talking about a quantum cybersecurity problem, so talent acquisition, talent development, and talent exchange is another reason where these alliances can collaborate in order to build the right talent development paths, maybe shared academics, in order to build the talent of the future in order to tackle all this.
Well, I'm sure we could go on all day here. We're actually out of time, though. So please join me in thanking David and there, Arnaud, Mark, please. Thank you very much for your time.